You are listening to Season 2 of The Diary of a Wannabe Writer, the short and often daily podcast in which I chronicle my life and attempt to be a writer by writing daily. Sometimes.
Hello, today is Monday the 23rd of June 2025 and you're listening, to The Diary of a Wannabe Writer. And if I could feel any less like recording a podcast today, I don't know when I felt any less like it. And if I hadn't committed to doing a podcast every day this month, then I really wouldn't have bothered, because I've just felt not very well all day. So I did what I said I would do yesterday. I think I can't remember even what I said on the podcast yesterday, but basically I'd signed off chapter 32, hadn't I? And immediately after that, I went out and had something to eat. As I say, there's a 24-hour cafe, sort of tea shop place that does salads and food and stuff. So I had precisely that, salad and food, came back to the hotel, and it took me a little while to get to sleep. And then when I woke up, I just felt lousy. I don't know how to describe it really. I hadn't slept properly. It's a combination of kind of building up of jet lag over the last few days. So long story short, I don't think I've used that phrase in this. Maybe I have, but not very often. Long story short, I haven't done any riding today. Don't know what that was supposed to be. I was hoping to. I did a little bit of reading through chapter 33 actually, and the one thing I will say about it is it doesn't leap out. It's not jarring. It's not very different from the material that I wrote 2 years before, which was basically what chapter 32 was. So that's a relief. So today is my last full day in Singapore, and I've done precisely nothing. I did go out to get some food, but I didn't enjoy it particularly. And that's about it. So I'm going to quickly talk about because I've already managed to kill 2 minutes by saying nothing, is the future of Doctor Who, because we're still waiting on announcement. I did read somewhere that the earliest Disney have announced a cancellation after an episode has gone out was 40 days. So we're not anywhere near 40 days since the final episode of Doctor Who was broadcast. But I've just been thinking what a mess it's in. So it's fairly common knowledge now that when they originally filmed the final episode, Ncuti Gatwa was not leaving the show. He was actually supposed to be doing season 3 and 4. They were going to do it as a block like they did season 1 and 2. And for whatever reason, he changed his mind at the last minute. So what we eventually saw in the episode was due to some reshoots that happened, I think it was January or February this year, which was the regeneration. But it really messed up a huge amount of stuff. So firstly, in the episode, you have Susan turning up. His granddaughter, played by the same actor who played her back in 1963 and 64, and then again briefly in 1983. And everybody was like, well, where's this going? And because they had to change the end of the story, it went nowhere. So apparently the young girl, Poppy, the one that ceased to exist, and the Doctor basically used his regeneration energy to pull her back into existence, or whatever, that wasn't supposed to happen. They were supposed to save her, but it wasn't supposed to cause him a regeneration. And apparently there was a scene at the end where Susan comes up to her and goes up to Poppy, the little girl, and says, "Hello, Mother." Now that makes sense because technically, because they did establish at the end that she had no Time Lord DNA, which is a bit weird because she was the child of the Doctor and his companion. She was originally meant to be Susan's mother, which kind of then, whilst a lot of fans wouldn't like that, it made sense of having her there and the arc. But of course that all got cut out because of the way the story ended. And you've now got another problem. If Disney pull out, which they might do, they might not do, it's very hard to say at this point, but if Disney are not financing the next series, you've then got a big problem, because we are literally halfway through a big storyline. Russell T Davies had planned a 4-year story arc about the Pantheon of Gods. Of course, it's not resolved. It wasn't meant to be resolved. It's not meant to be resolved for another couple of years. But if you've now got a new streaming partner, how are you going to convince them to say, to get the first half of the story, you have to watch the episodes on Disney Plus? and then you can watch the rest of the story on here. It's okay for people in the UK because it's all on BBC iPlayer, but they are obviously, it is an expensive show, and they are obviously going to be looking for, I suspect they're going to be looking for another streaming partner. And as I say, how do you convince someone to pick up half a story? So does it mean they'll just ditch the Pantheon of Gods storyline? Now, my guess is the whole Rose Tyler thing, because obviously at the end of the episode, spoilers, by the way, the Doctor appears to regenerate into a body that looks like Christopher Eccleston and David Tennant's companion Rose Tyler, as played by Billie Piper. Now, there are theories that, again, the whole 4-year story arc around Ncuti would have ended with him having a regeneration that ended up him combining back with David Tennant's Doctor from the Bi-generation, so that sort of all made sense. But of course they can't do that now because he's gone. So one of the rumours is that if the show continues, and I don't like to use the word if, but I think it's necessary at this point, having Billie Piper in there, it would make sense to have David Tennant in there as well. So it'd be very interesting if they can round off the 14th Doctor storyline in a series of specials, which is, because this is my guess, when it comes back, Billie Piper is not going to be the Doctor, or if she is, it's only going to be for a handful of episodes, a bit like David Tennant did at the 60th anniversary. And they could couch it as a kind of late 20th anniversary of the relaunch of the series in 2005. As I say, it wouldn't go out in 2005, but that's how they could sell it effectively. And so you could have a couple of episodes that sort of round that off, sort out the David Tennant storyline, and then go back into the Pantheon of Gods storyline, or just ditch it because obviously it's gone nowhere, and it's all very complicated and messy. Anyway, that's me waffling. I'll be back tomorrow. I doubt I'll have done much, so tomorrow will also be a podcast for the sake of a podcast, and it will be earlier than this one because this time in 24 hours I'll be on a flight back home to London. Anyway, take care, thank you for listening, bye bye.
You have been listening to The Diary of a Wannabe Writer. For more information about what I'm writing, go to linktr.ee/Richard Writes, capital R, capital W, where you can find details of my website and social media. I may see you there.